Atlantis. Just the name, it immediately brings up these incredible images, right? A magnificent, high-tech civilization just swallowed by the ocean. For literally centuries, it's been the ultimate historical mystery, the one everyone wants to solve. So today, let's dive in and see if we can separate this epic legend from reality.
And that really is the heart of it, isn't it? We're talking about a story where an entire superpower, a whole island nation, gets completely erased from the map in less than 24 hours. So what are we dealing with here? Is this a real, historical catastrophe that got passed down through the ages, or is it something else? A story with a message? That's what we're going to try and figure out.
Okay, so with any mystery, you have to start at the source. And when it comes to Atlantis, there's really only one place to look. To get to the bottom of this, we've got to go all the way back to ancient Greece and listen to the guy who told the story in the first place.
Yep, that's it. Every single thing you've ever seen or read about Atlantis, every movie, every book, all of it, it all comes from just a handful of pages in two of Plato's works, the Timaeus and the Critias. Just let that sink in for a second. This massive, world-famous legend, it all traces back to one guy. It's not some universal ancient myth that lots of cultures shared. It's a very specific story, told by one very, very famous philosopher.
And you have to admit, Plato knew how to tell a story. He doesn't just describe a city falling apart over time. Nope. He talks about a sudden, violent, catastrophic end. A place that grand just vanishing completely, and that fast? It's honestly a terrifying idea, but man, it's also incredibly captivating. It's that combination of awe and disaster that just makes it impossible to forget.
So let's do this. Let's treat Plato's account like an old-school detective's case file. What are the main clues he gives us? Okay, clue number one, the location. He says it's beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Now, anyone back then would know that means out in the Atlantic past the Straits of Gibraltar. Clue number two, the layout. He's super specific here. A city made of these perfect circles of land and water, all connected by canals. Clue number three, their whole vibe. They were a massive naval power, and they were arrogant about it. And finally, clue number four, why it all ended. They were punished by the gods for that pride, for that hubris. So any theory about a real Atlantis has to explain these 4 points.
You know, this whole argument about whether Atlantis was real or not isn't new. In fact, the minute Plato told his story, the debate started, and it has literally never stopped. Was he writing down a lost piece of history, or was he just trying to teach a lesson?
Yeah, this has been going on forever. Right from the very beginning, most of Plato's own students, the people who knew him best, thought he just made it up. They saw it for what it probably was, a great cautionary tale, a what-if story about the dangers of power and greed. But there were a few, like this other philosopher named Crantor, who were totally convinced it was real. He supposedly even went looking for it. So yeah, the hunt was on from day one.
And what a hunt it's been. We're talking more than 2,000 years of people searching all over the globe. They've been driven by those tantalizing clues in Plato's case file, and they've pointed to dozens of places. So let's take a look at two of the most popular and compelling leads in this investigation.
All right, our first major suspect is the absolutely incredible Minoan civilization. These were a Bronze Age people who thrived on the Greek islands of Crete and, most importantly, Thera, which you probably know today as Santorini. And for a lot of people, the Minoans are an almost perfect match.
I mean, the case for the Minoans is pretty strong. They were a major sea power with amazing palaces and art, just like Plato talked about. They definitely had a thing for bulls, which was a key detail in the Atlantis story. And most importantly, their world was rocked by one of the biggest volcanic eruptions in human history, on the island of Thera. But, and this is a really big but, the case against is just as strong. For starters, the location is wrong. The Aegean Sea is not the Atlantic Ocean. And while the volcano was devastating, it didn't completely wipe out the Minoans overnight. They rebuilt. Their culture kept going, didn't just sink into the sea.
So that brings us to our second lead, which is a lot more recent and, crucially, gets the geography right. If we take Plato's words literally, that Atlantis was beyond the Pillars of Hercules, well then our search has to take us out into the Atlantic, right to the coast of Spain. And you know what? There's some pretty compelling stuff here. The location is a perfect fit. And get this, satellite images of the mudflats in a park there show these weird circular shapes under the surface that look a lot like Plato's City of Rings. Geologists have found proof that massive tsunamis hammered that exact area in the ancient past. And maybe the coolest part? This was the known location of a rich, mysterious ancient city called Tartessos, which just vanishes from all historical records around that same time. Pretty spooky, right?
Okay, so we've got some very compelling leads.
We've got historical parallels, we've got these tantalizing satellite photos, but after all these centuries of looking, what does modern science have to say? What's the final verdict in the case of the lost city of Atlantis?
Well, here it is. This is the scientific deal breaker. It's called plate tectonics. We've known for decades now that the Earth's crust is made of these giant, slowly moving plates. Continents can drift, mountains can rise up, but a massive island continent doesn't just sink. The idea of it just plunging to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean goes against everything we know about geology. It's pretty much a scientific impossibility.
And because of that, the scholarly world is pretty much in complete agreement. While those theories about the Minoans or Tartessos are really fun thought experiments, and maybe Plato was inspired by them, virtually every serious historian and philosopher today lands right where Plato's own students did. Atlantis was an invention. It was a brilliant story he made up to warn his own people in Athens about the dangers of arrogance and greed.
So here's the bottom line. You're never going to find Atlantis on a map, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. It exists as this powerful, enduring idea. It speaks to our deep-seated hope for a lost golden age and our fear of losing everything we've worked so hard to build. And honestly, it's a huge credit to Plato's skill as a storyteller that this little philosophical tale has inspired thousands of years of wonder and adventure.
And that kind of leaves us with one final question to think about. Even when we're pretty sure it's a fable, we still look for it. We're still totally fascinated by it. So why is that? Why do we want to believe in a lost, perfect world? What does our endless hunt for Atlantis tell us, not about some ancient city, but about ourselves, right here, right now? That's the question that really keeps the legend alive.